So this week for activity 4 in particular, what we did was we created a light level meter. And what that meant was we had an analog input. In this case, it's an LDR, a light dependent resistor. And what we did was, as the lux value increased on the LDR, if you keep an eye on the LEDs, as the lux value increases, the amount of LEDs that switch on will incrementally increase. And so what we had then was we had kind of this light level meter that would happen as we increase and decrease the LEDs. Now, if we look at the flow chart for this particular case, we have a series of compare blocks with a series of output blocks. And how this is done exactly is we started off with a range. So we get a compare block. So from my flowchart control, we have different blocks basically, and they're helped to use to control the flowchart and how the flowchart will actually operate. So we have a compare block. And the first compare block, if we just double click on it there, it brings up compare properties. And in compare properties, we have a mathematical expression. So it says if A0, so A0 in this case stands for the analog input on the microcontroller, is greater than 30, then it's said to be, the condition is said to be true. So if we get a value for A which is greater than 30, we can see there with the A0 sensor on the right hand side, I just press simulate there, and when you press the simulate button, you can see on the right hand side you should get a tab that says view several monitor panels at once. If I click on that there, you can see the compare block run through the actual flow chart there. And if I increase that value there, you can see the value is now at 53. So it's actually greater than 30, but it's less than 60. So it's going to the second compare block, and it's saying if A0 is greater than 60, yes, goes to the next one. If no, then it goes to the output block, which puts high for Q0 and 1. So it puts the two LEDs at outputs Q1 and Q0 high, and it flows around. Now, if I just double click on that, I'll just press stop for a second, double click on that output block, you can see in the output block I have the first two LEDs switched on and all the rest are switched off. So that's very important in that case, that they're all actually switched off. And as I go down through, you can see I have the first 3 on, the rest are off. And if I go to the next one, the first 4 on, the next 4 are off, and the next one, and so on. So make sure that in all cases, they're either switched on or switched off. Okay. So for each output block, I'm sending another LED high each time. So the first one, I've only one of them high. The second one, I've 2 high. The third one, I've 3 high, and so on. And then I have a series of compare blocks there saying if A0 is greater than 30, greater than 60. I just want to change this here for a second now. So if it's greater than 90, if it's greater than, we'll make this around about 120. That's fine at 150. We'll say 180 and 210. So we'll go 180. And we'll make this, here I will say 220 and press OK. So we have a series of compare blocks then with the output blocks, and we incrementally increase the range. So if we look at the compare block just for a second, A0 is greater than 30, right? So if we look down through the actual menu there, we have ranging from 0 all the way down to 255. So what I've essentially done is I've broken the range from 0 to 255 into kind of even divisions of around roughly 8, so or 7. So I have about 7 compare blocks there, dividing up that range of 0 to 255. Because as we said in the earlier lectures, an analog input has a range of values from say 0 to 255, whereas the digital had just two values, either high or low, or on or off. And if I press play on this one here, and if I just reduce that down, and if I go up through the lux value, you should see it slowly incrementally switch on one LED at a time. So you can see as I drag it up and as I drag it down, the light level changes the LEDs as they switch on. So switch on, reduce it down, and they all turn off. Okay, so that's basically how we kind of create the light level meter. So the importance here is getting the flow chart to work and flow correctly. So it's a series of compare blocks. Make sure that the yes, the Y and the N, the yes and the no are in the correct position. If you want to swap those as well, right click and just go swap yes and no, and that'll change the position of the Y and the no for the compare block. Okay, thank you.